I had to die to to
Yeah.
get shaken up and figure it out.
Hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Norton, the founder of People Plus Purpose, and this is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. And today we have as our guest Ira Rosenau. Ira has 28 years experience as a business leader and commercial attorney, helping businesses solve a wide range of complex challenges. He's become an innovative thought leader in the dental 3D printing space, and he has an incredible, life-changing personal story. Welcome to the program, Ira.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. It's so nice to be here with you, and thanks for having me. And look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure for sure. So you and I have had conversation. I know a bit about your story, I know that wasn't comprehensive, I'm certain, but and I want to get to this really powerful death to life uh, experience that you went through. But first, let's be a little more, I guess, business minded about
Sure.
it. I know that has plenty of business applications. You have a unique background of running a dental manufacturing business and 30 years as a commercial attorney. I'm curious as to what this has taught you about building a successful industrial business in today's dental space.
Yeah, I've learned a lot through my various stages of my career. When I was practicing law for 20 years, my focus was commercial litigation. So I was involved in, chaotic, destructive process, and I learned a lot about what not to do when you're running a business, or how to avoid certain mistakes, and also how to work your way out of them more efficiently than going to the lawyers and engaging in litigation. When I took my skill set over to the dental world and start running a dental business, I was surprised how much of my skills translated. Um, Marketing is basically trial advocacy, and the contract and negotiation skills were still the same, and understanding people, what motivates them, were really the same. And also having to learn to work your way through complicated systems really allowed me to quickly get up to speed on what it's like to run a medical device manufacturing company, and all the regulations and all the things you need to do to be in a position to even make products like that. Really dovetailed well with my logical legal background. So there was a lot of natural skills that translated, but there was also a lot of dental I had to learn when I got there. And I had great people both within Keystone Industries and outside of Keystone who spent time and energy teaching me the ropes of dental and manufacturing and regulatory. And but I had to work a lot at learning it as well.
I'm guessing that there's not a large percentage of people who have that kind of unique combination of backgrounds that you have. I guess I'm curious as to any particular uh, specific advantage application, like when you think, okay, because I have these two things, this has really allowed me to do what, would you say?
Well, that's a great question, and yes, the first year that I was at Keystone, tried to really shy away from the legal background thing. I've been in plenty of meetings and rooms with people when they find out I'm a lawyer and they get that look on their face, like, oh, like, yeah, I know, I don't like lawyers either. No, you don't have to go get your counsel, but I've seen that. Okay, and so the first year I kind of tried to move away from that, and it was just ridiculous. People Google me, it's all over, right? So then I started to lean into it, and when I leaned into it, what I realized is, first of all, there's tremendous efficiency in being able to handle both the business negotiation side and the legal negotiation side. I could do things quickly and more efficiently than the other side because they have outside counsel. And once I got up to speed, and with my background, particularly in things like IP and patents, there was a lot of synergies with what I was trying to do. So once I started to lean into it, there's a lot of things that I was able to do efficiently that other business people couldn't, because I could combine both the legal and the business and see the landscape through that. Um, so there were opportunities, but there were also times, like I said, there were other times when, people found out I was a lawyer in a business meeting, and they, they kind of shut down a little because they are a little afraid of lawyers. And then I have to overcome that.
Yeah, I can see how that could seem intimidating. Plus, I think also people get confused by kind of surface level disconnects sometimes. I mean, like a lot of times if you go through life and you contribute in different ways, you've got different life experiences and you reinvent in your work, not not always do people understand how that could integrate. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Because I mean, weren't you doing that? Was that like not weren't hadn't you already arrived in this other
Correct.
great thing?
So I think, yes, I had a lot of people. First of all, when I got to Keystone, there were a lot of people inside of Keystone going, "You hired a lawyer to do what?" I was like, "Yeah, I got that, buddy. I'd probably
Yeah.
feel the same way you do
Right.
and be saying the same thing. Give me a little time. I'll get up to speed. You'll see I'll get there." And within the dental industry, one of the most common questions I got was, "How'd you go from being a trial lawyer to running a dental business?" Like, that doesn't happen, to your point. There's a few of us, but not a lot of us.
Yeah.
There's a few of us, but it's a weird transition. And for me, once I got over the mental hurdle of, hey, I don't think people want to deal with lawyers, I realized how much of my legal skills
Yeah.
helped me become a better person at running a business and more efficient, and allowed me to work my way through complex problems and complex building of systems and partnerships as well. Just understanding complex systems, my legal thinking and framework allowed me to translate that. So I think for the most part, yes, people were very fascinated by it because there's not a lot of it. And there were people I worked with were like, "What kind of knuckleheads are you for hiring a lawyer to run your dental business?" I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah, I
Right.
kind of wonder that too."
Yeah. Well, that's kind of I guess, the logical segue into my next question, which is, what is it that that you're loving so much about working in dental that you found this home here compared to all the other things you've done?
Um, I didn't expect it, first of all. I came out of a background where I was living disputes every single day. So I walked into the dental community thinking, oh, it's going to be cutthroat. It's going to be all sorts of, fierce competition. And it's not that it's not competitive, but I was shocked at the collaborative nature of the industry and how willing people were to help me get up to speed, how willing they were to entertain partnership ideas or ways to collaborate when, hey, we're competitors in a lot of areas, but over here we have some mutual interests. And I was very surprised by that, and then really enjoyed it because I think it's a much better way to approach solutions and driving. I've become a big believer in driving value to the people you work with and value propositions. Makes people want to work with you instead of feeling like they're forced to work with you.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that when I got to within dental, I really gravitated to initially how nice and collaborative it was. It took me about maybe 18 months to really open my eyes to the fact that we're actually helping people with
Mm.
healthcare, and
Mm.
their smiles is the first thing
Mhm.
people see. Like, I think I was so focused on learning the nuts and bolts of what the hell I just agreed to go do as a business
Right.
that I missed kind of the mission part.
Yeah.
Like, and once I started to see that and combine it with some of the innovative things we are doing, it it gave it every day a different purpose. When you're a litigator, there is no purpose. You're just fighting in the dirt for your client every day. This made me realize there's things I'm doing are actually helping people. And that also added a great benefit. So when you combine the collaborative nature of what the industry does,
Hmm.
the interesting innovative innovations happening within dental, and a lot of medical innovations happen at dental first because it's
Hmm.
a little bit easier to go inside the body and the mouth before you go elsewhere. There's a
Hmm.
lot of very innovative things happening, and then the fact that you're actually helping people with both their healthcare and their self-esteem and all those things, it adds up to a nicer existence than just fighting with people. And I didn't necessarily expect that when I said, "Hey, let's go do this." And now, 9 years later, I'm like, I love that this industry and what it does for its customers and its client base and its patients. Just surprised and um, thrilled, really, frankly.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That sounds like the perfect integration of elements for a fulfilling life. So I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you that you walked into those new things to be able to kind of put this unique package together. I think there's a lot of people who either never really clarified, owned a mission that's is compelling enough for them that drives them on through whatever adversity they have to face. But I think a lot of times, even if we start with it, it's not hard sometimes to lose a bit of that in the dailiness of things. And so
Sure.
that's always one thing I'm always trying to, in my work, help people either locate it or relocate it because life is just so much more powerful.
The daily minutia of what you need to accomplish to pay bills and get your kids to soccer, and like it'll grind you down when you don't spend time thinking about what you're really doing. And when you do, sometimes you go, why am I doing this? And other times you go, you know what, I think I've made a good choice, or I've stumbled into something here that I'm good at and that feels good. And it's always good to go up to that 30,000 foot level and take a look at your life, because when you're in the muck every day, it's a grind. Life ain't easy.
Yeah. And kind of maybe speaking about 30,000 foot levels and perspective, right? So you survived a cardiac arrest, had 25 minutes of clinical death back in March of 2022. Uh, that has to be perspective giving in addition to being unlikely that that would even occur, right? So given that, I mean, what have you learned? How has this informed your life since then? What's changed for you, I guess, as a result of that?
It's such a complicated question. Everything has changed. Absolutely nothing is the same. Everything I experience and do is filtered through that experience now. And I didn't ask for it. I didn't really necessarily want that to be the defining thing, but we just passed the 2 year mark last week. It is, and it's changed everything about me. So I've learned so much. I was had a nice life before. I was doing good things, but I was out of balance. I did not have the appropriate perspective on work and where it should reside, and I had to die to to
Yeah.
get shaken up and figure it out. Now I've put a lot of time and effort in the last 2 years to figure out what it all means and how to start to take steps to bring balance and better existence to what I'm doing, and to value every day, because we won't go into the whole story, but I should not have survived that night. My heart attack started on an airplane, finished in the only hospital that probably could have saved me,
Mm.
and that would have committed 25 minutes of CPR to me. And somehow, after 25 minutes of CPR and 9 days in a coma, I have no deficits. Like, it's me.
Right.
Like, it's crazy. And
Yeah.
so when you were handed the gift of a second life, just going about doing everything the same way was anathema. It made no sense to me whatsoever. But I also recognize I just been through a very significant trauma, and the fallout was going to be significant. So I took a year or so to just let things settle and figure out what I wanted to do with my second life. And I started asking questions like, what do you actually want to do? And what I realized most importantly was that I needed to bring balance. And just working 67 hours, 60 to 70 hours a week, being great at being Keystone's dental president wasn't enough to sustain me in the second life. I needed to be doing more, find ways to get back, find ways to talk about my story, find ways for people to find balance and mindfulness, and just sort of take assessment of what each day actually means. For me, I had to go through this massive trauma to get there. So now I talk to people and hope just in little small ways they can get there without dying. So it's changed everything about me. It's brought such perspective to me, such gratitude. But it's difficult. So now I talk to people about ways to look at their heart health
Mhm.
and take care of themselves there. I've been certified and I'm teaching CPR classes so I can give back in that way. I'm raising money for the doctor who saved my life for his research into aggressive cardiac intervention early, which is exactly what saved my life.
Mhm.
Um, to be handed a second life like this, um, every day is an interesting journey with it, and I don't pretend to have it all figured out, but I have figured out that just wrapping your self esteem all up in being great at a job or your professional success, it's a pyrrhic chase and victory. It's not really what it's about. But it took me 30 years and one death to figure that out.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
I knew when we met and spoke that I wanted to invite you probably for the, I don't know how many time that you've shared your story, but to share it with this audience. And I think it's powerful. I think in retrospect, I can see, I know with things I've been through in my life that have been the most difficult things, I can look back and see the blessing that's in that, the invitation. Even as you said, even as you said, you know, just bluntly, I died. I think to be, I don't want to say this, to be the greatest servant of other people, to be able to have a life that's based in giving value. There is a dying to self, a dying to self-focus, major self-interest that precludes really seeing other people. So I don't know. I'm fascinated, really. I mean, it's easy for anybody else to say because nobody knows what you've been through but you, and the difficulties that that brought in trying to make sense of it and move forward from it. But I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you have the opportunity to make an impact in those most meaningful ways.
Well, thank you. It means a lot to me. I appreciate you giving me a bullhorn to talk about some of these issues. I always say to people, look, you know, I didn't ask for any of this and I got it all. And I don't expect for anybody out there to do that. But I do expect you to maybe take a second to think about your life a little bit and how you can take little bits of this and make some changes that are for the better rather than having to go through the massive trauma. Um, so I know sometimes that's what it takes sometimes, and it did for me. I just hope other people can get there without it, and just see that there's things in life other than what you think is the most immediate, like goal that you need to achieve. If you really start breaking down the wheres and the whys for it, it falls apart pretty quickly a lot of times. So, um, just want people to be thinking about what's important and tell people how you feel about them because
Yes.
you shouldn't wait. You can
Yes.
be skiing one day and be in cardiac arrest the next, and you just don't waste those opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's powerful. I think it kind of comes back to, for me, it comes back to gratitude. What am I grateful for each day? And I think I'm trusting that there's people watching us, listening to our conversation that needed to hear this and that are struggling with things that sometimes, like a friend of mine used to say, that anything that money can solve is not really a problem. And there's other things in life too that I think can grab our attention and pull us and be difficult. And I wouldn't diminish any of that, but
Yes.
nothing like e- losing your health or potentially losing your life to put things into perspective. So I'm just
You're
glad
right.
to tell.
You're right. I think I don't want to diminish that what people go through every day is very real. It's very painful, and they have to figure out how to work their way through. Life is full of, pleasure and pain and suffering and good things, and it's a balance. That's why you need some balance to roll with those things. But you also, need to be cognizant that um, it takes some work. It's not just waiting on a trauma to happen to change you, and you shouldn't. I didn't know that. I didn't even know that maybe that's what I was doing. I just was sort of oblivious and living my life and
Yeah.
had a pretty significant shakeup. So I think a lot of what you said is very accurate. And just without going too deeply into it, one of the frustrating parts of people go, "Hey, what's the downs like? Well, what's the frustrating part?" One of the frustrating things for me is, and you hinted at it, is nobody really gets this. Not my wife, not my therapist, not my friends, but I don't want anybody to get it because that means they will have to go through this.
Right, right,
And I don't want that. But the reality is, it's very lonely. And when I talk to people, they go, "Oh, I was in a terrible car accident or this happened," and horrible traumas. And they're always trying to wrap their head around a trauma and
right.
equate it to this. And I understand what they're doing, but
Right.
they've missed because I died. It's
Yeah,
like game over. It was
right.
game over for 25 minutes. And the
Yeah,
fact that I've come back and I'm okay is a totally unique type of a trauma that is also a little bit isolating.
yeah,
So there are times where you just go, geez, nobody gets this at all. And I don't want them to really get it. I just
right,
want them to get the upside of it.
right. Yeah. Well, I'm that all makes sense to me. And I know that the tendency sometimes is, oh, to say things when you don't know what to say. Oh, I know how you feel, or to try to relate it to a personal experience. But I
They're not doing it out of malice. They're just doing
oh
it out of sometimes they don't know what to say, or they just don't know. And
yeah.
it's also one of the things I've just come to realize is people aren't doing it at. They're curious. Like they want to know about this experience. I always go, if Jesus, if one of my friends went through this, I'd have 100 questions. Everybody dances around the near death experience question. They always want to go, well, did you walk into the light? Nobody wants to ask me, but then they go out and they ask me. And so I get why people are curious about it. I really, really get why people are curious about it. And I also get um, why they say things to try and equate it and try to understand, and they can't really get there. So I've just kind of like I've had, like you said, I've had this conversation so many times in the last 2 years that I'm very cool with whatever the audience responds. I've seen all the responses that
Yeah.
people have,
I,
so it's okay. I get it. It's just human.
I bet. Well, you said that, coming out of that and you're okay. I think you're well more than okay. So I'm glad for the voice that you have and the contribution you can make. I want to make before we wrap up, uh, I want to make a what would seem like a hard left turn from that focus to ask you, given your world of technology and the kind of the focus of a lot of your work, what do you see coming from a technology standpoint that you feel is going to be kind of significantly impactful for dentists and patients?
No, I think you're seeing a lot of it now, but I think you're going to see even more of it over the next several years. First of all, machine learning and AI. Aside from being a great buzzword, we were laughing in Chicago at the midwinter shows. We laughed around and walked around and went, does every booth say they're having something AI? Because it seems to be the thing everybody wants to say they're doing.
Right.
I do think it's going to be very impactful. It's already changing the way certain workflows are able to be done. It doesn't replace skilled dentistry. It just makes things a little easier to work with.
Mm.
So machine learning in so many different ways is coming into play all throughout dentistry. Automation and things like 3D printing and digital dentistry, as they continue further adoption every year, more and more adoption, it changes the way dentists are practicing. It's changing the way the dentist lab relationship works and how medical devices are being fabricated. It's changing the economics. It's changing the patient experience and what the patient can expect. So I think you will continue to see things like automation, 3D printing, start to really impact how doctors are practicing in their office, what they're delivering to their patients, what they continue to still look to for laboratories. And, between DSOs and everything else, the regular GP is being squeezed from every angle economically. And so they're looking for new ways to expand the ways that they can make money or put butts in the chairs. And a lot of the way to do that is through things like automation and efficient workflows. And so you're seeing a lot of that, and digital dentistry is kind of really a key to opening that. So those things are all here. I just see them really deepening their adoption, such that the way people were practicing dentistry 5 years ago isn't going to look like the way people are practicing dentistry 5 years from now.
Mhm.
I just think it's changing very quickly, and those elements are what I see is really driving it.
Um, any quick thought on where this could be get overextended to where any of these things that are happening, you mentioned AI, the technology automation elements. Do you imagine some of that going in places to where it either doesn't ultimately people get
Yes,
lost or it doesn't ultimately serve patient or doctor?
yes. I think you're already seeing that too. So what I would say is none of these are tools. I used to say at Keystone, I make tools. What you choose to do with the tools, yes, there are things within the IFU you should be doing, but you guys are the professionals. You work with the tools we make for you. Um, with that, and with things like automation and a machine being able to design devices based on data, which is fantastic. It's just terrific, but it doesn't replace the dentistry part. You need doctors involved in knowing how to do things like move teeth or where to place the implant. These are tools for medical professionals. Okay. So when people start using the tools to replace good medical dental decisions, I ain't in favor of it.
Right.
Sorry, I don't think that's great. I think the doctors are there to perform what they're skilled in doing with tools that they are provided. The tool should not replace the medical advice. And one of my concerns is I think you already see that happening in certain ways. And the flip side of what I said a few minutes ago about doctors needing to find new revenue streams. Well, that pressure also leads to doctors taking on some things like they go, I remember doing an endo case when I was in dental school. Let's do some endo. Like, oh no, 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 no. Like that's okay. That's the flip side of the pressure on the doctors. And so if they're going to keep doing that because they see that there's ways to get there faster through technology, that might be great or it may not be so great. So, my biggest concern with what you see with digital dentistry and how incredible it is when people stop thinking of it as a tool for delivery of a medical treatment and start looking at it as the substitute, you run into some problems there. So it's just that's another way of saying I'm afraid the machines are going to rise up and kill us all. It's the same kind of an argument. Like, hey, it shouldn't replace the
Right.
human skilled medical professional.
Right. No, that's good. Thank you for that. And I had one other thought on that myself too, with because I over the last many years of doing the coaching work that I'm doing, I work with a lot of genius, smart people who are incredibly technically skilled, but my what I believe I see sometimes can become an even greater reliance upon those things where there's already strength and going deeper in that, thinking that more of that is going to solve all things and missing that the human element that is underdeveloped because who is featuring that as a primary piece, and yet they need to be communicating with team members, communicating with patients. So that ability to communicate and to translate that technology over to the people who are not savvy about that, to go beyond being a technician, I guess, is even a smart, skilled technician, but they're still humans that need to understand more and be connected with.
Yeah, and it's again, these are tools in the delivery of a treatment or a therapy. There are humans involved all over the place. You're not going to be able to eliminate that. So
Yeah.
when you start cutting corners and doing things like eliminating the human because they went, well, we have all these data points, and okay, but someone's got to review it at the end of the day and go,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, this looks good. I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
I just really look, there's some really cool stuff going on with D2C work in dentistry, and some of it's great. Just when people are figuring out more efficient ways to help processes and help things go faster or with less reliant on labor, that's great. When you start eliminating professional decision making, that's that to me
That's
is not great. I don't care what the profession is. So
yeah.
that's my biggest concern with. And by the way, I'm like one of the proponents of digital dentistry. I've like been working in it from the beginning. I believe a full throated, go digital in dentistry,
Yeah.
but don't replace the docs.
Yeah.
They're providing a very important part of the service. It's a tool for the doctors.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, that's why I kind of threw that out to you, because I know that from your background, it's like, of course you're for that. And yet, right, there's always an and yet possible overextension into anything. Well, this has been awesome.
Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it
I
very
really
much.
have enjoyed the conversation. So if people want to know more about what you're engaged in, or for any number of reasons to
Sure.
connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
So first of all, my website is my business. We were joking before we got on is called 2.0 Consulting, 2.0 to PT0 consulting.com. The joke is basically after the heart attack was I'm the same guy, but I'm not. It's just sort of like a different version. And the joke became everyone called me Ira 2.0. And then I realized it really is kind of appropriate for what
Mm.
I'm doing. So you can go to my website. I'm also actively consulting in the dental space now. So I have an engagement with Lux Creo 3D, who's the first direct print end-to-end workflow for aligners. It's a pretty amazing technology. I'm also working closely with Cloud Dentistry on helping them with expanding their reach of their temporary staffing services for hygienists and dental assistants to the clinics. Very innovative approach to how to solve the staffing issues. So, anybody wants to talk to me about any things I'm working on, or just questions about sort of the life issues and how did I deal with those things,
Mhm.
please reach out. I'm very happy to engage with folks about it, and anything else that we talked about, people have questions about, happy to chat with folks.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you opening up that
Thank you.
opportunity for people.
Thanks. I appreciate all you're doing with this, with the podcast the reach you're giving to folks and putting things out there to expand better dentistry.
Thank you, Ira. Thank you. So, for everybody watching, Matthew Norton and I have been with Ira Rosenau, and we are excited that you're with us and hope that you will continue. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.